Hello and welcome to the Association for Consulting Expertise Professional Development Webinar Series. ACE is a nonprofit association of independent business consultants and owners. Our goal is to make our members more effective and successful in their businesses. We accomplish this through educational and skill building programs, networking, and creating collaborative opportunities. If you are interested in learning more about ACE, please visit us at consultexpertise.com. I do want to introduce our presenter, and we have the pleasure of having Bruce Katcher, and he is an industrial and organizational psychologist and president of Discovery Surveys. He specializes in conducting employee opinion and customer satisfaction surveys, and he has surveyed over 100,000 employees. He has consulted to more than 100 organizations, including Alcoa, Barba Foods, Delta Dental Plan, Dunkin' Donuts, Fisher Engineering, Gifford of Maine, Gigantic Communications, so us Mainers are familiar with these companies for sure, Hussey Sealing, Johnson & Johnson, the Mayo Clinic, Revlon, Portland Pipeline, Sodexo, Textron, Timberland, Tufts University, Velcro, and W.R. Grace. And his award-winning book, be sure to check that out on his website, 30 Reasons Employees Hate Their Managers, which I'm sure we can all relate, and An Insider's Guide to Building a Successful Consulting Practice were both published by the American Management Association. Bruce is a former president of the Society for Professional Consultants, which we mentioned before, and is an ardent proponent of self-employment. As a side business, he provides individual and group coaching for aspiring and experienced consultants under the name the Center for Independent Consulting. Bruce is also a realtor on Cape Cod, so if you know anyone interested in buying or investing in a home there, Cape Cod, that's a gorgeous place. We always go down there at least once a year, Bruce. If you would like to start receiving his free monthly e-newsletter, I love Wellfleet, please email him at brucekatcher@kw.com. Today, Bruce will be talking about how to jumpstart your consulting business. Welcome, Bruce. Glad to have you here.
Thank you, Priscilla.
It would just give you a moment to get settled in. I know that you have a presentation to share with us.
Yes. So I will share my screen.
Awesome. Perfect.
Okay. Okay. Ready when you are?
All right. You've got the floor, Bruce. Thank you.
Okay. Welcome, everybody. Bruce Katcher, Discovery Surveys. I'm glad you decided to attend. We'll go, I guess, about 45 minutes or so. There'll be time for questions at the end. I think there's a way for you to type in, as Priscilla said, some questions you may have as well. So consulting is something that's been important to me, and I've been doing it a long time, and as I'm sure many of you have as well. Some of you are probably considering whether or not to be a consultant. Some of you are consultants now, but are looking to try to make more business and advance your consulting. So we're going to talk about all those issues now, and we're going to start right now. So it was 24 years and 11 months ago, and maybe a couple of days, that I was sitting in Wellesley Hills at a large consulting firm, the Wyatt Company, who I was working for there, where I was doing employee surveys too. There was a little recession. People weren't buying what I was selling. My then boss came up to me and said, "Bruce, we're going to have to let you go." Now, this was devastating. I'd been there 3 or 4 years. My family had moved up there from New Jersey. Hopefully you couldn't tell I'm from New Jersey. And what was I going to do? What other big consulting firm was going to hire a consultant who just lost their job because sales were down because of poor business climate? And I had never been an internal HR person. That wasn't my experience. I was an industrial psychologist. So I made up my mind then that I was going to go into my own business. I had done that before, but I was going to do it now at a higher level to be able to support my family. So for me, it was like a scene from Gone with the Wind. You remember in Gone with the Wind, which I'm sure most of you have seen, where Scarlett O'Hara returns at the end of the Civil War to Tara, the beautiful southern plantation where she was raised. And there were military people just moving around. Her father's there, but he's gone mad. All the slaves, of course, are gone. All the artwork is gone. All the furniture is gone. And she is very upset and very distraught. And she's hungry. There's no food in the kitchen. She goes outside into the field. The field has been totally picked over, but she finds a root. And she grabs that root and she takes a bite out of it. And she holds it up to the sky and she said, "As God be my witness, they're not going to lick me. I'm going to live through this. And when it's all over, I'm never going to be hungry again, nor any of my folk. If I have to lie, steal, cheat, or kill, as God be my witness, I'll never be hungry again." Now, that's how I felt. And that's what has motivated me for many years to be a consultant. I don't know if any of you have had similar kind of experience of being laid off. My guess is a number of you have. And that could be something that motivates you. You got to remind yourself how you don't want to work for somebody again. You want to do this on your own. That's got to be your mantra. You've got to wake up every day saying, "I'm going to make this. I'm going to make it. As God be my witness." All right. So that's important to get that motivation. It'll help you to jumpstart your business if you're in a lull. All right. Now, do you remember what it was like to work in an organization? For some of you who are thinking, well, maybe I'll apply for jobs. Maybe I'll continue to look for a job while I'm consulting because I haven't got that many clients now, or it might be a good thing to do now the economy is doing a little better, okay? But do you remember what it was like? Now, here's some statistics from all the employee surveys that I've conducted over the years. Half of people say they don't feel free to voice their opinions openly in their organizations, right? Do you want to be in that kind of environment again where you're too scared to feel free to voice your opinion openly? 5 out of 10 feel insecure in their jobs. So there's no such thing as we know anymore about job security. It's always job insecurity. You're always insecure. That's the way it's going to be. Now, right now, you're living with some insecurity if you're trying to get new business as a consultant, but you're not going to lose that if you get a job. You're still going to have that. 6 out of 10, more than half, say management doesn't listen to us. 7 out of 10 say management doesn't act on any of our suggestions. So you had in your last job some good suggestions. You had things to say to management, and you were met with deaf ears. 7 out of 10 say there's not a clear link between their job, their pay, and their job performance. Okay, right now there's a 100% link. You perform, you sell, you satisfy your clients, all the money is yours. Unless you've got some expenses, of course. If you don't, well, then you're not paid. Okay, so those are the kinds of things you have to go back to if you worked again for somebody else. All right, sobering thought. My guess is you don't want to do that, and I don't blame you one bit. All right, so here's some of the reasons why new consultants often don't succeed, why experienced consultants don't succeed too. In real estate, so I've been learning a lot of different marketing things now that I'm also doing real estate. You need to have a big why. Why are you doing this? Now, if you've already got a lot of money saved for retirement and your spouse works and, this is just something you'd like to do, you're going to have a much harder time making sales. You're going to have a much harder time motivating yourself. You need a big why. You've got to support your family. You've got to send your kids to college. You really want to make it on your own, do it your way. Whatever it is, you need to come up with a big why, something that's going to motivate you. And you need to have it written somewhere where you see it all the time and remind yourself. That also needs to be your mantra, your big why. A lack of passion. You've got to have a passion for either making it on your own or for the type of work you're doing and how you're helping your clients, how you're really making a difference in the world or making a difference for your clients. If you don't feel that, you're doomed to fail. Now, as I mentioned, if you're not the primary breadwinner, and a lot of people tell me, well, I'm going to consulting. I say, are you the primary breadwinner, which maybe is a little nosy of me and presumptuous as well. But I do. I ask that. And they say, no, my spouse, makes a lot of money. I'm not really the primary breadwinner. I say, well, this is going to be a lot harder for you. Not impossible, of course, but it's going to be a lot harder for you because you need to be motivated here. You need to get yourself up every morning and push yourself. And if you're not the primary breadwinner and you don't have that passion or big why, it's going to be harder. As I mentioned also, if you're still looking for a job, it's hard to say to people, well, you know, do you have any vacancies? I'd like to know. And by the way, I'm looking for consulting work. It doesn't work that way. You need to put your eggs all in one basket. Either you're going to sink or swim, but you got to have them all in one basket. Now, if you were raised by people who worked for large organizations, or what I call corporate types, who are used to, 9 to 5, not working weekends, having a pension, there used to be such things, it's going to be harder for you because you don't have any role models of people who are working 24/7, of people who nights and weekends are all the same thing because they're always working. So it's going to be harder for you. If you find it difficult to work at home, now you could always get an office, or there's office sharing, that kind of thing, but then there's more expenses you'll have. If you find it, if you don't have a separate place where you can work at home, or where if you've got kids around all the time, that probably won't work for you. If you don't have a separate place where you can have privacy, it's not going to work for you. So you need to either figure out a way to work at home and not always be at the refrigerator or at the TV or checking your email. A lot of consultants say that it'll help them if they partner with somebody else. Well, most partnerships, as you know, don't work. Just like most marriages don't work, like 50% fail. Partnerships don't work long term. 1 + 1 has got to equal at least 3. If you're going to partner with somebody, I'm really good at what I do, but this other person's good at marketing and sales. Now you've got to market and sell your own stuff. Or we can talk about things and it'll be better for our client. It's got to be a lot better because you've got to make twice as much money. So I would avoid partnering. There are some exceptions to that rule, but I would avoid it. Loneliness. This is one of the biggest challenges and why a lot of consultants don't succeed. One of the things that you get when you work for another organization is being around other people, which is very important. When I conduct employee surveys, often I do focus groups ahead of time, and I say, what are the things that, the reasons that, what do you like about working here? What are the reasons you work here? And they say, oh, it's close to home. I like the actual work I do. Some of them say, I like my boss. Now, what are the things you don't like about working here? Then they go on for the rest of the hour. I stop them at some point and say, you said a lot of negative things. Why do you still work here? And almost always, not sometimes, pretty much always, they say the people. The people. Now, these people are just work friends. Now, here's another example. I've done over the years many outplacement workshops where people lost their jobs, and I counseled them on how to find new jobs and how to get their resume together, how to network, that kind of thing. And I'll get out a flip chart and I'll say, what are the things you're going to have to replace now that you don't have a job? So they'll say things like, I'm going to have to require, of course, the money and the benefits. And what else? And almost always it's the people. But again, these are work friends. These are not real friends. They're work friends. And they find once they leave there, and people who've been out of a job for 2, 3, 4 months, they don't have anything in common with those people that they left. They don't have the SOB boss or management to talk about anymore. So they're not really, they're important to you. They're shallow friends. So I tell them, if you start another job, you'll be able to find the same shallow work friends again, which are important to us, but they're not real friends. And the other thing is why people don't succeed is they have a lack of discipline. They're not disciplined enough to get every day to really serve their clients and to market and to sell and to be thinking about it all the time. That's what you have to do. You've got to be marketing and thinking about selling your business always. You've got to have a business card on you always. You have to be selling and thinking about your next assignment always. Okay. What I'd like you to do now, if you haven't already, is, taking notes you could do. You could always buy my book, An Insider's Guide to Being a Successful Consultant, the Building a Successful Consulting Practice, but keep a to-do list. So at the end of this, you'll have things that you're going to do, tangible, specific things you're going to do. Okay, that's what I suggest. All right. Okay, so is consulting right for you? Now, for those of you who are just thinking about consulting, this may be very relevant. For those of you who've been in consulting a while and are trying to jumpstart your consulting, which was the title of this, so that's why many of you signed up, and those of you who've been doing it a while but need to be rejuvenated, think again about the difference between consulting, contracting, and employment. So this is a chart from my book. I've got employee, contractor, consultant here, and I've rated them on different criteria. So by an employee, I mean somebody who works as a full-time job. You know, maybe it's not full-time, maybe it's part-time, but you're an employee. You get a W-2, whatever it's called, at the end of the year, and you get a salary, you get benefits. Consultant is somebody who's independent. You're the one who decides what to do and how you're going to do it, and you have an independent relationship and contract with your clients. A contractor is somewhere in between, where you might be given a 6-month contract to come every day. They give you workspace, perhaps. They tell you what to do. Should be legally, you should be an employee, but you're just a contractor. You sign in at a different ID on a different clipboard as you come in because you don't have a badge, and you're given an assignment which is usually for a certain period of time, 3 months or 6 months. There are a lot of people who go from contractor to a contractor assignment. The best way to define it is a contractor is you're the person who, if there's extra bagels, you're allowed to have them, but normally you wouldn't because you're not an employee. So anyway. All right, control of time. How much control of your time? Well, you actually control what you're going to do every day. An employee, it's low. You've got hours, you got to be there. As a contractor, it's low too. You probably have hours you're going to be there. As a consultant, it's high. You're the one that decides. Control of space, which is where you're going to work. As an employee, it's low. You're told where to work. Maybe you can work sometimes at home for some employers. Contractor, it's also generally low. And for a consultant, it's high. Control of what you're working on. As employee, it's low. Contractor, low. Consultant, high. Stimulation from others. You get a lot of that, as I just spoke about, as an employee. As a contractor, well, you're sort of an outsider, but you're there. As a consultant, it's low. You've got to find other people to get involved with, like ACE and like the Society of Professional Consultants, like other consulting organizations and other organizations you're members of. You've got to come up with ways to get stimulated by others. The need to market and sell, well, unless you're in marketing and sales, as an employee, that's low. As a contractor, it's medium. You've got to, each assignment, you've got to find another one, and you can't really do any of that until the contract is over. As a consultant, of course, it's high. Personal growth varies as an employee. As a contractor, it's medium. As a consultant, it's high. Benefits are high. As a contractor consultant, you probably don't have any benefits. You're paying for them yourself. Or if you're fortunate like me, your spouse has a full-time job and you get benefits that way. Job security, as an employee, I have high, but as we know, there's no such thing anymore. Contractor, it's low, and as a consultant, of course, it's low. But there's career security. As an employee, it's generally low. As a contractor, it might be medium. As a consultant, it's high because you won't have to move. If your business is doing bad, you're not going to have to move to go to a different part of the country because you're still in the same business. You just got to market differently or better. And so you still have career security. Whereas, let's say you're making a 6-figure income at a firm and they've gone under or they lay you off, whatever, you may have to move to a different part of the country, move your family. So anyway, hopefully this could help you to jumpstart by understanding and having this all in one place. All right. Do you have a clear focus? When I work as a mentor for consultants, this is one of the major things we focus on. If you're trying to do too many things for too many types of people, it's going to be very difficult. I remember when I first worked for the Wyatt Company, which was at the time primarily a benefits consulting firm, and 90% of the revenue came from doing actuarial work, pensions, which of course went away. That was a focus. I say, how do they make business? How do they have a business? Well, there were only 4 or 5 firms in the world that were just focusing on pensions and being actuaries. So if you have a focus, it really helps. It helps you to make it clear to other people what you do, and easier for you to tell people what you do. It's easier for you to get referrals from people. It's easier for you to charge more. It's easier for you to know who to market to because you know who your target market is because of what you do. So oftentimes, one of the things you really need to do to jumpstart your consulting practice is to focus. Just like a lot of organizations say, well, we're not going to be in the cafeteria business anymore here. We're a hospital. We're going to focus on our core competency. Or we're not going to do this business or that business. We're focusing on our core competency. That's what you need to do too. Focus on your core competency. You have to become crystal clear about your focus and be able to say it succinctly, and so that others will be clear about your focus. You need to narrow your focus. The more narrow you are, sometimes the better. Actually, most of the time, the better. For example, for years and years, I've been doing and did, although now the market for it has gone away for the most part, employee surveys. And I did them for all kinds of organizations, ranging from large manufacturers, supermarkets, retail, healthcare, every kind of organization. The people who would eat my lunch were firms that focused just on one sector. They focused just on healthcare. They focused just on banks, just on insurance companies. So they had norms of just how those people, how employees in those organizations feel about their organization. So they had a normative database. They could use it to sell it. They knew where to market and sell. They knew where to write papers and get them published. They knew where to give speeches. They knew where to have booths at trade shows. All right. So think about how you can narrow your focus even further. There's 4 ways to focus. One is on the kind of consulting work you do. I do compensation work. I do employee surveys. I do marketing work. The other is the sector or the niche, for what sector you do it or for what type of business. The other is the geography. I only do it for people in Maine. I only do it for people in Boston. And then a combination of all of those. So I'd encourage you, if you haven't got a clear focus now, I'm doing a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this, you're not going to be able to make as much money. It's going to be harder for you to market. It's going to be harder for you to get new business. Focus. All right, a lot on this slide. And I'm just going to go over the highlights. So one of the key important things for any consultant is to have leverage. And I'm going to talk about, this is something that I feel pretty good about. I sort of came up with this concept of there's different business models. You go to a website and you see that there's an organization is selling something. You wonder, well, how will they make money? They're giving this away for free. You want to know what's their business model. And there's a lot of other organizations that have different kinds of business models. Well, consultants can have different business models too. And I'm going to evaluate each of these different business models on different criteria. One is operating leverage. And here's what I mean by leverage. There's only 3 ways to get leverage. One is you get leverage by selling a product more than it takes you to make it. Now, most of us as consultants are not making products, although some of us do to supplement our business, or maybe we do that, but that's generally not the way. The other is to make money off of other people. That's the way big consulting firms do it. So you charge for the services of others, and there's a profit for you. So you charge out for somebody to do some marketing work for one of your clients, and they get $1,000 a day. But you charge $2,000 a day. 1,000 of it is yours, which you've got to take expenses out of to operate your business, that kind of thing. And the third way to get leverage is to leverage your time by having a repeatable business. So, for example, when you write a proposal, well, if you're doing the same kind of work all the time, you're not having to reinvent the wheel all the time. You're able to use the proposals you've had in the past as a template. So instead of taking you a day to write a proposal, it takes you a few hours or less. When I do employee surveys, I have templates of proposals, of final reports, of the actual surveys, of all kinds of documents and things that I use. Now, should they pay me less because it takes me less time to make it? No, they should probably pay me more because I can do it faster, and because these are tried and true and tested documents and devices and instruments. So that's another way to get leverage. So those are the 3 ways: the product, service of others, and repeatable service where you can do things faster and better. All right, so management of others. Some of these business models require you to manage others. Some you're by yourself. Startup time, some you can start up tomorrow. Some it's going to take you a while to ramp up. Some there's lots of ongoing marketing. Others not so much. Some you get passive income where you're getting income at night while you're sleeping. Others, none. Income potential. Some they're very high potential and some are very low. You really can't make a lot of money by it. Can afford you some work-life balance and some can't. So one way to choose your business model is say, I want high operating leverage and I want high income potential and I don't care so much about work-life balance, whatever. And then you can look and see which model is most appropriate for you. Okay. So again, this is a chart in my book. And so each of these are explained. So let me talk about each one of these briefly, or some of them anyway. And I'm looking at my watch every once in a while. I just want to keep us on track. So a time-based model. This is where you charge for your time. It's the simplest way to do things as a consultant. It's probably the worst way to operate. You got no operating leverage. You're not making money off of other people. And the faster you work, actually, the less you make. So you got no leverage. You don't have to manage others. If you want to avoid managing others, well, you got that. You could start up right away, probably. Ongoing marketing required, probably low compared to the other models. No passive income. Income potential is low. There's only so much you can charge people by the day or by the hour. And work-life balance is low. Give an example. I was working with, I was at the Society of Professional Consultants at a meeting, and there was a consultant there who complained. He outsourced, he helped manufacturers to outsource business to China. He knew people in China, he knew manufacturers in China. He would go there periodically. I guess he knew a little bit of Chinese, and he would help people to do that, to reduce their costs. And he charged by the hour. He said, Bruce, I'm going crazy. I'm working all the time. I've got this great lawn. And I can't go out and cut the lawn because if I do that, it takes me a couple hours to do it. I'm thinking that's a couple of hours I could have billed. That's costing me 2 hours of billable time. So what do? We switched to a different model, to a retainer-based model, which I'll talk about in a second. We just get a certain amount of money each month. And he doesn't have to worry about how much time he's putting in. So he did that. His clients liked it a lot. He had a life again, and his lawn looks great. So that's what he did. All right. Project-based, this is the kind of work that I do primarily. It's got advantages and disadvantages. Operating leverage is low unless you get other people to work on the project. You don't have to manage others, again, unless you get other people to work on your project. Startup time is short. Ongoing marketing, yes, that's high to get new projects all the time. But you have time while you're doing the projects to do the marketing. No passive income. Income potential is medium. Work-life balance is medium. Okay. Retainer-based. Operating leverage, you tell people, I charge you this much per month. Let's say you're an attorney that does work for labor attorney, and you do work for companies that periodically need you to solve human resource issues. Okay, you say, all right, I'll be available. My normal rate is $500 an hour, but I'll be available at a much lower rate to you each month. You owe me. It'll be $2,000 a month, and I'll be available to handle this, and that. You don't tell them how many hours you're going to put in. You don't even tell them your rate. Just say, here's what you're going to charge me per month. But you limit the scope to the things you're going to cover that are covered under it, and other things you say you're going to talk about. And there might be projects along the way. That's retainer-based. It's got a lot of advantages. I won't go through it all. But then if you're on a retainer, then you know you've got money coming in, and you can hire other people. Or you can take some vacations. It's a nice way to do it. Results-based, you're paid for the actual results you produced. Annuity is where you, like when I worked with the actuaries at Wyatt, they had an annuity business. People needed them to fill out forms monthly, quarterly, whatever. My accountant has an annuity business. It's harder for people to switch, so it's good. Consulting firm, many of you may already have this, where you're making money off of other people. Outsourcer is, let's say you work for a company, it's a small, mid-sized company, and they don't want to hire a full-time marketing person, so they'll outsource all their marketing to you. Or they don't want to have a customer service person, they outsource that to you. You're the outsourcer. Product sales, we know what that is. Subscription, if you provide some kind of a periodical or newsletter that people are willing to pay for. Razor blade, like Gillette has, where they'll sell you the razor handle cheaply, but the blades are going to cost a lot, and you're going to need them because they don't last that long. Or a printer, like Epson printer and Hewlett Packard. They'll sell you the printer cheap. You buy a computer and the printer is almost free. But the cartridges, that's going to be a lot of money, and the cartridges aren't going to last forever. Those are razor blade models. It's possible to do that in consulting. The subscription basis, I guess we talked about that. Distributor, where you distribute other people's products or services. Where you publish a magazine, where you're a franchisor, you've got a business that really works, and so you set up other franchises to do it. Or you can buy a franchise from somebody else. Somebody's got a franchise for helping organizations to hire part-time people or whatever. You could be a general contractor where you do a lot of different things, but you have other people do it. You could subcontract out to others by working for a general contractor, not a good business model. These subcontractor model and the time-based models are the worst. Freemium is where, like Skype has, where you can do computer to computer, you can do that for free, but there's add-on services that cost more money. You could start a professional association. You could do speaking for money. You could do public seminars. You could be an author. So I won't spend any more time on this, but they're all defined. If you have any questions about it, just let me know. All right. So are you making it work economically? All right. So I've got a hypothetical example here. Let's say that you want to make $100,000 per year. Okay, just, because that's where you're making your last job. Before, you still have to pay income taxes, but you're making $100,000. So you're going to have to pay the self-employment taxes, the Social Security and the Medicare, these are all very approximate numbers, which is about $15,000. Right? You're going to have to pay your edge of it and also what your employer used to pay, the employer's end of it. Health benefits, it's probably higher now, $15,000. Retirement benefits, you still need to save retirement. Other benefits, which you might want to buy, you've got expenses now, you've got automobile expenses, marketing expenses, educational expenses. Total revenue you're going to need to achieve your desired level of income of $100,000 is $175,000. $175,000, very sobering to make that 100. All right? Now, there's 260 working days, 52 weeks times 5 days. You're going to take let's say 2 weeks of holidays, 2 weeks worth of holidays. That's minus 14 days. Vacation days, you're a consultant now. You're independent. You should be able to have some consulting time. There's 20 days. Sick days or personal days, you lose 5 days. 2 days for 48 weeks for marketing, sales, administrative work you need to set aside. That's minus 96 days. So you only left with 125 days to make that $175,000. Bottom line, on the bottom here it shows it. You need to bill 1,400 hours a day or 175 hours per hour. This is all very approximate. It'll give you an idea. Some people, they start in consulting. They want to make $100,000 a year, and they're charging $500 a day, and it's not adding up. This is why. So this will just give you a general idea. If you're going to charge by the day, which I encourage you not to do, this will give you a general idea. If you're going to charge for a project, this will give you an idea maybe how to price the project. But if you want to make $200,000, then you got to double a lot of the numbers. If you don't have to make as much, then you can subtract. So that gives you a general idea. All right. Are you continuously marketing? Now, the idea is to do something all the time. Every marketing approach works. But if you try to do them all, you won't do any of them well. Just like if you try to do all kinds of consulting services, you won't do any well. You got to focus your marketing, just like you need to focus your marketing, your consulting services. All right, so here's 18 approaches. There's many more. And I've got them organized by how much out-of-pocket expense, by how much time you'll need to spend, by the time horizon, like the startup time, ease of delegating to other people, whether there's writing skills, presentation skills, or interpersonal skills that you'll really need to have to do this well. All right, so direct mail. You may say, oh, for my service, direct mail won't work. If you do direct mail work, it'll work. Cold calls, direct email, they all work if you do them well. They all work. There's a reason you get all these letters in the mail. There's a reason you get cold calls. It's because they work. Otherwise, companies wouldn't do it. Oh, but I'm a consultant and I'm very professional. It'll work for you too. You got to do it well. And I'm not going to be able to teach you in a couple of minutes we have about how to do all these well. You need to become a student of it, but you need to pick one or two that you think will be best for you, and it'll work. Best for you because it'll be best for the kind of service you provide, but also best for you because it won't just be on the back burner. You will actually do it because you're not adverse to it. If you don't want to do cold calls and you know you're not that good at it and you don't want to invest the time in getting good at it, don't do it. You might do some of the other things though. All right. If you're an excellent writer, you might do some of the things that are required that require writing skills. If you're excellent on your feet and you want to do good speaking, you could do some of those. If you're tech savvy, you might want to do some things with social media and with your website. If you're a good networker, then you might want to do a lot of contacting with your network and be systematic about it. So let's just look at some of these. In the interest of time, I'm going to go through really quickly. So let's say I'm a big advocate of an electronic newsletter. So the cost is low. Time commitment is medium. You have to write something. If you do it monthly, once a month, it might take you a day. Time horizon could be long until you build up your database. You're not going to be able to do it tomorrow. And ease of delegating is relatively low. You can do that. You've got to do you're the writing. Writing skills is high, but you can get people to edit it. Presentation skills, you don't need them, and interpersonal skills, you don't need it. So I highly recommend doing an electronic newsletter. Oh, there's lots of people who do those. Yeah, but if yours is better and gets to your target market and provides some value, then it'll get read. Let's say you're an excellent speaker. All right, doesn't cost a lot to do that. Time commitment's medium, time horizon medium. You can't delegate it, and you need to have high presentation and interpersonal skills in order to sell it. Okay. So take a minute to just look at those. I can answer any questions at the end about any of these, but this just gives you an idea that the key thing to think about is, what is your strength? I'm a really good writer. Well, then do the things that require high writing skills. I'm a really good presenter. Do the things that require good presentation skills, but be systematic and do it really well and consistently, because all these techniques work if you do them well. If they're on the back burner, none of them work. All right, do you know how to sell? This is a big thing. Big thing that people makes it difficult for people. But the truth is, selling is not rocket science. It's not rocket science. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to do it. The key thing to keep in mind, I'm only going to say a couple of things about selling. The only thing to keep in mind is your prospects, your potential clients, your prospects, they don't want to understand everything about you. They want to be understood. They want to be understood. Now, how do they get understood? The way they get understood is for you to come with a whole list of questions and follow-up questions and be a good listener. All right? For you to come in with glossy brochures and talking about yourself and your company the whole time, that's a way to turn people off. You need to show that you care about them and you've heard them. During the presentation, when you're meeting with them, it's not really a presentation, but during your meeting with them and in your proposal, you need to show and demonstrate to them that you've listened. You've heard everything they said. You said you needed this, you needed this, you need this. Here's a couple of very important questions to ask. What challenges do you think this work will face? What challenges do you think this will face? And then in the proposal, you talk about, and you mention this challenge, and this challenge, and here's where we're going to address it. Or what fears do you have about doing this? Okay, get them to articulate their fears. You mention this fear, and this fear. You put this right in your proposal, and you talk about it. So they'll know that they've been heard, and you'll have ways to address what they can, if you can address their fears. If you can't, then you can't. But the key is to be a good listener and to be able to let them know that you've listened to them better than anybody else. Because they can't really usually differentiate between you and the 2 or 3 other consultants that they're going to meet with. Or if they meet with any. If you really have listened to them well, then they may not need to meet with anybody else, and you'll have set yourself above everybody else. Okay. All right. So here's some of the challenges. Losing your motivation. All right. Now, so remember, what's your big why? Why did you get in this to begin with? What is your focus? Don't lose your focus. Don't get distracted. Becoming lonely. Look for ways to avoid loneliness. Look for ways to be around other people. You could just work side by side with people at Panera Bread or Starbucks. But more importantly, meet with fellow consultants. Meet with people who are in your target market. Go to their professional meetings so you're not lonely. Or meet with friends where it's not about work, but where that's not a big problem. Don't dilute your business model. You could use several of them, but pick one that works best for you, where you get leverage, where it's repeatable. Don't charge too little. You know, I showed you the economics. You need to make at least that much, if not more. All right? Don't worry about selling. The main thing about selling, again, is listening. So come with a list of questions. The better your questions, the better salesperson, the more sales you make. And be willing to adapt to change. If you see nobody is buying what you're selling, you've got to change. So this is sort of the opposite of sometimes the trouble you can get at, which is having too much focus. Having too much focus will get you far. But if you see your focus is not working, then you could be in trouble. You need to focus on, one of the things I didn't mention, but I'll mention now, is you have to focus on where there's a need. Is there a need for the service? Let's say you work for an organization, there were a particular kind of service you're providing, but the organization didn't have a need for it. Well, do other people have a need for it? If they don't, then you need to do something else using your skills. So you need to find something that there's a need for, that you're able to provide and do well, and where people are willing to pay. So you may say, oh, I can do this and this for these nonprofits, but they don't have money to pay you. Forget about it. That's not going to work. Or I can do this really well, but you know, there aren't too many people buying that anymore. That's not going to work. It's very simple here. It needs to be where you're addressing a need, where you can do it well, and where the third thing is where they're able and willing to pay. All right. So at this point, I normally ask if there's any questions, because we're running out of time. Went fast for me anyway. And I want to give you my closing story, and then we'll answer any questions you may have. All right. So I can give you the moral of the story too. The moral of the story is, if you keep on doing the same thing the same ways all the time, you're not going to get any different results. All right. So this is a story, and I'm a big Star Trek fan. This is I'm watching all the new ones now, actually, the Discovery ones. But anyway, this is from those of you who are old time Star Trek fans. This is from the second movie, which was one of the best of the original movies. It's called The Wrath of Khan. It was based on an original episode with Ricardo Montalban, where he is Khan, this superhuman, genetically engineered superhuman being who's going to take over the starship and the world. Anyway, so I told you the lesson. Let me tell you a story now. So it's the second movie. We open up the movie, and we're on the starship. We're on the bridge of the Starship Enterprise, and a svelte Kirstie Alley, because sometimes she's heavy, sometimes she's not, like me. She's sitting in the captain's chair of the bridge, and she's got big long ears, so you know she's a Vulcan. And she's signing things with a clipboard, and people are coming up to her, so you see she's in charge. And all the major players are there. Spock's there, Uhura there, Chekhov's there. They're all there, and they're coasting along. Then all of a sudden, she hears Chekhov saying there's some enemy vessels on the long-range scanners. So quickly, she tells Uhura to hail them. Of course, nobody answers to hails unless they're very friendly. And then she finds out that they're powering up their weapons. So she quick says, put up the shields. They put up the shields. And then they start firing on them. They're firing on them. Shields down to 90%, the computer says. Shields down 80%. She says, take evasive maneuvers. Shields down to 70%. Fire back. Shields down to 60%. Get out the photon torpedoes. Shields down to 50%. You see people on the bridge dying. Spock dies. There's explosions. Uhura dies. Shields down to 20%. Then it goes black. Now, you know the movie's not over, unless this is the biggest kept secret ever. It just started. Lights come on. Everybody's fine. This whole thing is a simulation. She's a cadet. Kirstie Alley's a cadet in Starfleet Academy. It's called the Kobayashi Maru simulation, which we learn more about in other movies. But anyway, it's the Kobayashi Maru simulation. It's a no-win scenario. No matter what she would have decided or what decision she would have made, they all would have died. Okay. However, there is one person in the entire history of Starfleet Academy who was able to pass this test, and that was Kirk. Admiral Kirk was now Admiral Kirk. Now, the whole movie, while they're fighting with Ricardo Montalban, she's asking Kirk. She asked him over and over again, how are you able to pass this? I haven't been able to figure this out. I've been through it in my mind 2 billion, 300 million times. Of course, Vulcans could do that. And he says, I'm sorry, I can't answer. When she thinks at the end of the movie they're going to die, although Spock is going to beat them out of danger, she says to the Admiral, you must tell me, how were you able to pass it? And he said, okay, I'll tell you. What I did was, the night before the simulation, I went into the control room and I reprogrammed the simulation so that there was a way to win. Now, some people, including my wife, say that was cheating. It's not cheating. It's changing the rules. It's doing things differently. So that's what you need to do to jumpstart your consulting business. You need to do things differently. You need to focus more. You need to use a better business model. You need to focus your marketing. You know this. You probably know this, but you need to do it. So get out the to-do list, if you haven't been keeping one, and put down some things now that you're going to do to focus your marketing, to get some leverage in your business, and to charge more and to be more successful at your consulting business. So that's all I have. I'm going to turn it back over now to Priscilla, and Priscilla will tell me if there's any questions, which hopefully I'll be able to address.
That was awesome, Bruce. Thank you so much for all the wisdom. I loved how you opened up with mindset. Like, we just have to have the right mindset to be able to do this, because there's some days that even I, who have been in business for 9 years, sit and think, oh my God, how am I going to get this done? And I would love to hear too, you mentioned you have some key challenges, the key challenges of what we could face. I would love to know what your greatest challenge was and how you overcame it. And I'm going to start collecting some other questions in.
Well, let's see. My early in my business, one of the major challenges was I was going out to work with big companies because I knew I needed to in order to make the kind of money I wanted to make. And I didn't have a database, a normative database to do the employee surveys. I just had to have enough chutzpah to say, to lead with what I had, which was that I worked with this company, this company, this company. These are all companies I'd heard of, and I knew how to do this. And I didn't bring up to them anything about a database. Now, it could be I lost some work because some people had some databases, but for a lot of my clients, that wasn't the most important thing. And for me to go in there thinking it would have been wrong. I led with my strength, which was my experience.
Lead with your strength. Awesome. We have a question from Teresa Peak. She wanted to thank you for the presentation. She is just starting out, and luck has it, she's flying back to Maine today. And she just bought the book, and she'll be reading it on the plane. So I guess it's not a question, just a comment that she just bought your book and she'll be reading it on the plane. So we look forward to meeting you, Teresa. She is one of our members who has joined to network with us virtually. So that's a really cool thing. So Bruce, how did you get started in consulting? Like, what made you jump in and start consulting?
Well, as I said with the opening story, it was when I got laid off, and I said, nobody's ever going to do this to me again. I'm going to be in control of my own destiny no matter what. And I was working for a consulting firm, so I knew how to consult. Actually, I had been consulting before on my own, but at a much lower level, mainly only doing subcontracting, which I said I was going to do very little of. So was that fear of being laid off again and not having to deal with all the mishigas, as I would say, in organizations.
Yeah.
I wanted to study it and tell other people how to get around it rather than me being part of it.
Control your destiny. Yes. Yes. I too was kicked out of the corporate nest, and that's how I started my consulting practice. And one thing that I learned from working in a corporation environment like that was all the things not to do. And share that with my clients as well. So folks, if you have a question for Bruce, you can either send it through the Zoom webinar chat, which it looks like a little cartoon bubble on the bottom of your screen, or you can send it through the Q&A filter, and that it just says Q&A. It looks like a little file filter on the bottom of your screen. You just hover your mouse over it, type in your question. One of the big shockers for me when you were talking was the amount of money per day that you have to, I don't think I've ever broken it down. What do I need to make per day? I know I've made 90-day goals and half-quarter goals and things like that, but to break it down per day, that was an eye-opener for me to think of it that way. What do you think that, what's holding new consultants back from achieving a goal of making a monetary goal per day? What's holding them back from doing that?
there's a lot of just self-doubt.
Mm.
Here's the, one of the reasons I showed that little illustration is you need to charge that much per day in order to make it. And if you can't charge that much per day because your clients are willing to pay that much, or your prospects are unwilling to pay that much, or you're unwilling to ask for that much, then it's just not going to work.
Yeah,
You need to do another job.
I know I sent out a very hefty proposal a couple weeks ago, and I thought to myself, oh, am I being too greedy? But I know I need to cover my costs. I know how much I need to make on this particular project, and I'm just hoping that they could see the value in the proposal that I was putting out. David Strauss has a question. What have you found to be the right mix of marketing tactics?
The tactic which I've used for many years, although I stopped doing it, but now I'm doing it again in my real estate career, is I use this electronic newsletter. So that's why, in the beginning you mentioned, I've got this new newsletter called I Love Wellfleet. Now the idea is you want people to come to you. So the more you're just sort of in their face and they're aware of what you're doing, even if they don't click on your newsletter, they know he's still out there or she's still out there doing that kind of work.
Right.
So that's what I like to do. But so you need to come in real estate, we say you need to come from contribution. All right. So it's not just sending out something which says, here's what I do, hire me. It's giving them something that is of value. Mm-hmm. So like my latest newsletter is what it's like to live here during the winter. Yeah. Cape and Wellfleet. What's open, what's not, what does it look like? What are the advantages? What are the people like here? That kind of thing. So it's providing people who have a second home here, who may live here full time, people who live here full time and want to know what's really happening. It's providing them with some value. Now, when I was doing more employee survey work, my newsletters would start with a statistic from my database. I gave some of them earlier, something like only 1 out of 2 employees feels free to voice their opinions openly. And then I gave a story because people like to read stories. And then I talked about, here's 6 or 7 things you could do to improve openness in your organization. Mm. So I didn't charge for the newsletter, although some people could, but it was something I was giving value. And my name and the fact that I'm giving value was in people's minds once a month. So I really advocate for that.
So it sounds like you're really providing a good mix of providing value and then offering and making an offer, providing value, make an offer. And I loved what you said of utilizing your strengths. Some folks are just not comfortable doing cold calling, or they're not comfortable doing a live presentation. And so I liked how you said, just then don't worry about it. Don't make yourself do something that is just not your strength. Find something that you are good at it and just do it well. Yep. I loved how you mentioned that.
There's some people who are very effective and never come out of their offices because they're very good writers, or they're very good bloggers, or they're very good at writing white papers or papers that get published or whatever. They work to their strength.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. There's several consultants that I know who have just been really great at sharing information on social media, and that's how they've kind of gathered they've positioned themselves to be an expert in their field, and that's really powerful for them. That's how they leverage, as you said. So I'm going to just kind of keep it open for a few more questions if anyone else has any questions for Bruce. But I'm also curious to know, what are your next steps in the horizon? How are you going to be boosting your own consulting firm in 2018?
For me?
Yeah.
The truth is that I am. I've switched careers because I see there's not really a need for what I was providing for employee surveys. There are places like Boston Business Journal and Boston Globe have these surveys that they do for organizations for free.
Yeah. Right.
And there's a lot of technology where people could do it and they don't value. So there are some clients, I still work with some, but there's a lot of them that don't value it anymore. All right, so I can do something else. So that's why
you're saying you have to be willing to be flexible and to change when it's needed.
Yeah.
So that's really important too.
It sent my kids to college. It provided for living in 2 homes for many years. And now things change.
Yeah.
And so I'm changing too.
Awesome. We have another question. William wants to know, how important is a website?
It depends. If you develop websites, it's key. But otherwise, it's not. It's your little real estate, so to speak, on the web, and it's good to have it. But I would wait till the business could pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people, they get stuck with, I need to spend a lot of money to start this business with a website and with doing a lot of other things that cost money. Wait till the business can afford it.
Right.
So it's not that key, it's not as key. And there's ways to do websites that won't look great, but there's ways to do them for free. That's not my area. But you can certainly do that. So there's ways for people to see a little bit about you.
Mm-hmm.
But you're not going to get business. See, the way I always tell people, especially new consultants, is you're going to get business at first, and eventually, and always from the people in your inner circle, the people who know, trust, and respect you. And then you're going to get business from their inner circle, from the people who they know, trust, and respect, because they're going to refer you. The people outside who may bump into your website or Google your website, the odds of you getting business from them is very low.
Right. And, I loved what you said, don't over leverage yourself, especially if you're just starting out and you have to change direction a couple times to get to the point where you are, you are making money. You may have to change your website several times as you're changing direction as well. So that can be a challenge as well. So kind of keeping that pace so that you're not over leveraging yourself and becoming in debt when you're starting out is no fun to be. So,
yeah.
So great. Well, we are going to start wrapping things up. I just wanted to thank you again, Bruce, for being with us today, sharing that wealth of knowledge. For those who are just starting out, that was, I took furious notes, and I've been in business for a while. So you certainly shared a lot of information. Be sure to check out Bruce's website. Bruce, can you mention your website one more time for me that you would like people to go to?
It'd be better if people want help with their consulting. Just email me at Katcher, BKATCHER, at discoverysurveys.com.
Perfect. And we will put that in our show notes for you all to have so that you can reach out to Bruce, inquire about his book. And we do have some upcoming webinars that we're excited about. On February 13th, it'll be the 3 easy pieces, contracts for consultants and freelancers. And that will be presented by our own Carrie Yardley. And she has already been so helpful to ACE in straightening out some legal questions that we've had. So be sure to tune into that. She's going to talk about your contracts and making sure that you're in compliance. And then on March 6th, we are going to be talking about how to price your services or offerings. Bruce talked today about making sure you're making enough money to hit your yearly goal. And David will be talking about how to price your services so that you can actually attain those goals. And he's the author of the Irresistible Consultant's Guide to Winning Clients. He will also be presenting live at our March meeting at ACE. And so please check out our website at consultexpertise.com. Click on events and you can register now for those events. Bruce, I want to thank you again for joining us today.
Pleasure.
And I want to thank everyone who did join us today and participated and asked great questions. Be sure to register for our upcoming events, and we'll be chatting with you again soon.